So now, before I get into talking about identifying conflicts of interest, I have a couple of things that I want to talk about that are important. This is the way most of us think about the code of ethics and the way most of us think about ethical conduct and being ethical. Everyone in this room believes that they're on this side, right? And you probably are. I mean, most people, I've been doing this for over 15 years now, believe it or not, and what I've found, and I've dealt with people who have violated the code many, many times, they're mostly good people who make a mistake. You don't have to be unethical to violate the code of ethics. You just need to have a conflict of interest and not handle it properly. And being here today is how we're going to teach you how to handle it properly. But it would be incorrect of you. Let's start by being very clear. It's the wrong way to think about ethical compliance in the code of ethics by believing that there's this very clear, bright line between ethical and unethical conduct, legal and illegal conduct. The code of ethics are laws, right? So if you violate the code of ethics, you've broken the law, good or bad conduct. But that's not how it is. Most of the time when people call us and ask for advice, or when someone may have done something wrong, we can't take a pin and say, this is where you are. Here's where you were in the white. So the way you need to think about ethical behavior as a member of a school committee or a superintendent or a finance director or whatever we have here in the room today is more like this. When you have a question about, can I do this, can I not do this, can this other person do this, chances are you're in this area somewhere. It's some shade of gray. It's not clearly unethical, it's not clearly ethical. You're in this appearance of impropriety zone, this gray zone, and you don't know exactly where you are in it. But you remember from the Constitution that you're supposed to avoid the appearance of impropriety. So I could probably just say thank you for coming today and leave if you could all promise me to stay out of this zone, right? Gee, hey, can I vote on this, but on the other hand, I'm going to be fair, but I mean, it looks a little bit funny, but really, you're in the appearance of impropriety zone. You need to be over here, where nobody can question what you're doing. You're holding yourself to these are the highest standards of ethical conduct. These are the lowest standards of ethical conduct, and this is the appearance of impropriety. We all know where you need to be. And, I know that most of the people in the audience here are new to elected office. Some of you have been here for 35 years or, have been doing this for a long time. And I think if you talk to the people, if you go back to your cities and towns and you talk to the people who've been doing this for a long time, you'll find mostly that the people who have been doing it for decades are the people who understand that it's not worth it to try and get too close to the middle of the line. These are people who recuse when they need to, recuse when there's an appearance of impropriety, who are always seeking advice from legal counsel or from the Ethics Commission, and that's what I want to encourage you to do today also. So with that, let's talk about conflicts of interest and how to identify them. So this next segment I'm going to talk about how do you identify when you have a conflict of interest that requires you to take some action, and then what is the action that you need to take. So let's start with identifying a conflict of interest, and to do that, let's talk about what is a conflict of interest. I know everybody knows what a conflict of interest is. We use that term regularly in our lives, but I have a feeling that most of us, when we hear about conflict of interest, it's got a negative connotation. Right? It's in the news right now. Maybe our president-elect has some conflicts of interest with his businesses. He might divest, he might not. It sounds bad. What I want you to understand is, and the way I want you to think about conflicts, is that they're not bad. Conflicts of interest are perfectly fine. You all have conflicts of interest. You shouldn't be ashamed to talk about your conflicts of interest with your fellow board members or with your legal counsel or with the Ethics Commission, because All we want you to do is to manage those conflicts properly. And you can't control your conflicts to a large extent. If you're on the school committee and suddenly your brother-in-law has some business that appears before the school committee, you can't necessarily control that. You have a conflict of interest. It's not within your power to stop your brother-in-law from petitioning the school committee for a grant for the nonprofit he works with. But you need to manage the conflict of interest. So just having it, you should be able to talk about it and to figure out the proper management technique. Now, if you don't manage it properly, then we can talk about the problems that come from that. So all a conflict is the intersection of your public duties and your private life. Sometimes when you show up for your meetings, you're going to have a nice long agenda, and one of those items on the agenda is going to somehow involve or financially impact you. Or it's going to involve or financially impact a member of your family, or your private employer, or one of your business associates. And that's what a conflict of interest is.